hello, and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alacius Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's everybody today? How are you, Lacey?
I am fabulous. We have so much to talk about this week.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a wild week in news.
Yeah, we're going to have to get through it as quick as we can. But yeah, just a lot of stuff to talk about. So today's show, we'll talk about Peter Navarro, was the former trade guy for Trump. He just got 4 months prison, or 4 months jail. We'll talk about Trump in the E. Jean Carroll case. His attorney, Alina Habba, totally messed that up. It was embarrassing. DeSantis drops out of the race. Trump wins New Hampshire, but Nikki Haley's still staying in. She actually did pretty well. She's got a lot of backing. Then we'll talk a little bit about Davos and what they were discussing. They're concerned about climate, and they're concerned about another Trump presidency. And then if we have time, we've got some clips from Joe Rogan and some economic stuff and stuff on the Gen Z kids. So we'll just dive right in with Peter Navarro. So for those of you guys who don't remember, Peter Navarro was the guy who started the trade war with China that shot up inflation under Trump because they raised tariffs. So those taxes we end up having to pay for them. So it was a big issue and a big problem. Peter Navarro is famous for, he wrote a book that's been panned by every economist about how China is going to destroy the United States or something. And they even made like a little documentary about it that starts with a knife being thrust into the center of the United States. I mean, it's really tacky shit. But he got hired as Trump's sort of chief economic advisor, trade advisor, whatever it was, by Jared Kushner. And Jared Kushner hired him because Jared Kushner was looking for economists, and he went on Amazon, and Peter Navarro's book is what the first thing he came up with. And so that's how they hired him. That's how they vetted him. And the guy's not even really an economist. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Anyway, so he just got 4 months in jail for violating a subpoena for the January 6th hearing because he was a part of that. But we're going to watch this because it was just embarrassing for him.
Former advisor Peter Navarro has been sentenced to 4 months in prison for defying a subpoena to cooperate with the January 6th investigation. The ex-Trump aide was convicted back in September of one count of contempt of Congress and a second count for refusing to hand over documents. Senior reporter Catherine Falders is outside district court there. So Navarro was sentenced to 4 months in prison in order to pay a fine of, what, $9,500? How did the court?
So he's going to do 4 months, which will be funny. I mean, I don't know how he's going to fare in jail. I can't imagine real well. But I want to clip that. Did you hear that whistling in the background when she was talking? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what it was. Navarro was giving his speech after to the press, right? But he's so fucking hated in New York. This is what was going on during his speech. This is hilarious to me. So this is his speech. We're going to watch.
The circumstances
You hear
of
that?
your own making, we already know that they intend to appeal. Navarro's legal team has already noticed that appeal, so I'm sure he's talking about that behind me right now, but he's not expected to report to prison immediately. Or I'll tell you what, you go over there and
Signed, Peter Navarro's a liar. So the whole time he was speaking, protesters were there ringing cowbells and blowing whistles. He couldn't get hardly a sentence out.
I'm sorry, that is so funny.
He was all upset about it and bitching about it to the press. They won't let me speak.
I would be so thrilled if I found out that I had former students down there.
Especially since
I'm creating little protesters over here, so I'm hopeful some of my former students were among that.
Yeah, well, especially since it's Peter Navarro, most people don't even know who he is. He's kind of a secondary character. But anyway, it was hilarious. He couldn't get anything out. It was really pathetic. But yeah, he's going to do 4 months. He'll appeal it, but he's going to lose. But I also think it's interesting because you have, a dozen Republican congressmen, who also violated their subpoenas. So if Pete's getting tagged, well, that sets a precedent. Maybe they get tagged and have to do some jail time.
Wow.
Love to see that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that too.
Meanwhile, in New York, Trump was doing this second defamation case for E. Jean Carroll. All right. So just a reminder, E. Jean Carroll was He sexually assaulted her at a department store back in the 90s. She didn't report it back then. That was, a lot of women didn't report. Even today, a lot of women don't report because it's pretty traumatic. And anyway, she didn't report it. She told her friends about it, her therapist and all that, and they all testified. So the first case went up. The jury found, he did rape her. They call it sexual assault in federal. It's called sexual assault, but it's rape. It's penetration by force.
Right.
And she won that case because he then later talked shit about her and defamed her. So she won that. So determined that he raped her, determined that he defamed her. She won several $1 million, whatever it was. Wasn't a huge judgment. It was a pretty sizable amount. I mean, several $1 million is a sizable amount of money. Mm-hmm. So she wins that. Right after that, he goes on Truth Social, talks shit about her again, defames her. She's getting more death threats. He goes on Fox News, talks shit about her, and she's a liar. She gets more death threats. So she sues him a second time for defamation because it's now a whole new act of defamation. It's a whole new, civil claim. So that case was going on this week and did not work out well for Trump. He lost that one because when they started out, the judge had to explain to the jury he's already been found that he raped her, and it's already been found that he's defamed her in the past. Now we're just, and he's like, we're not really even arguing about whether or not they defamed her this time. He did. It's on television. It's on Truth Social. It's public, right? So really, we're just
he never learns. Like, you would think at some point he'd be like, opening my mouth publicly is expensive.
I think he just let it drop. But this is all figure it out. But this is all part of his presidential campaign too. His whole thing is, I'm the victim, vote for me. And people are buying it. I'm like, it shocks me. I'm like, if I had a president, if you had somebody come to you, give me a job because I'm a victim, you'd be like, really? Why would I give you a job because you're a victim? Right? That doesn't seem
right. And furthermore, it might make me go, well, if people like to do all these horrible things for you, I'm not sure if I want you working for me and bringing that black cloud around here. Like,
And furthermore,
I mean, even if I believed them, I don't know if I would want their, whatever that was about being like.
Well, and furthermore, if you come out of the gate and you're using the victim card all the time, well, why would I think that's ever going to change?
Right.
And then eventually I'm going to be the one that you're blaming and saying is victimizing you. I mean, that's eventually going to happen. So, but that's always how it is with these narcissists. Anyway, so the trial proceeds. Alina Habba had a really tough time in court, and we're going to go ahead and start with her. So Alina Habba was his attorney. She's also the one that forgot to check the "we want a jury" request form. Check the box. She has almost no trial experience, and it showed. But we'll watch a little bit, and I'll give you some more of the highlights. So this is the Midas Touch Network. That's E. Jean Carroll leaving the courthouse.
Ms. Carroll, would you like to comment on today's proceedings?
So day 2 of trial in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case against Donald Trump just concluded. The case is being tried in federal court in Manhattan, the Southern District of New York. You saw E. Jean Carroll there leaving the courthouse. There were numerous instances today where both Alina Habba and Donald Trump were admonished by federal Judge Kaplan. It started very early in the day where Alina Habba requested an adjournment of the proceedings. Judge Kaplan denied that. And what became very clear is Alina Habba has no clue how to do the basics of trying a case.
So we'll get into this a little bit. This is Ben Meisalas. We're going to use the Midas Touch a little bit on this because they're all attorneys over there. So they understand the legal stuff. They've been reporting on this up to the minute. So, case starts, right? First thing Alina Habba does is say, can we adjourn the trial? Basically postpone it. And of course the judge is like, no. Denied. We're already here, It's been set. This is it. This is the date. You couldn't ask for this 2 weeks ago or a month ago when you got the court date. So that's how she opened. Okay, so that's how she opens with the day. Yeah, but it's just it got way worse from there. We'll cover this some more, but I just think that's hilarious. Can we postpone this? I don't want to do it today.
God, what a
I
bunch
don't
of
believe
whiny
she's
little
ever done
people.
a trial
I
in
know, it's so pathetic.
federal court before.
It is so
On
pathetic.
numerous occasions,
Okay, let's watch this.
Judge Kaplan was saying to her, "You have to follow the rules. If you want to introduce evidence, you have to show it to the witness. You have to ask the witness if she recognizes the document. You then have to ask that it be admitted, and then you can request that it be published before the jury. You can't just start blurting out things in my courtroom, Ms. Haba." And so testimony today was taken of E. Jean Carroll. The direct testimony and the questions being asked by E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, Sean Crowley, were on point. Crowley's a pro, and E. Jean Carroll handled herself powerfully during direct examination. Honestly, emotionally, it was heartwarming to hear the strength of E. Jean Carroll. Then Alina Habba went, "Let me just give you some of the lowlights, and then let's just go through this together of what went down," including where Donald Trump made a comment to the judge like, "Well, why don't you just kick me out, Judge? You can kick me out." And Judge Kaplan's like, "I'm sure that's what you want me to do, and it's unclear to me why you are just physically incapable of controlling yourself in circumstances like this." Oh, and then after the proceedings ended today, before the jury even exited the room, normally the parties stand up, they wait for the jurors to leave, and then the parties walk out. As soon as the proceedings end, Donald Trump cut off the jury, like boxed them away, and then walked out first, which is just unheard of. And so
these are the 12 people that are going to be deciding how much money I owe. So instead of standing up and waiting for them to leave, which is the normal thing, I'm just going to cut them off and be a dick.
You know, I'm assuming he's just like, lashing out in anger. He's being angry, all of that. But
no, but he needs to control himself.
Who the hell he needs to control himself, and he needs to stop and think, who the hell is he to be angry about all of this? He literally is causing it all himself.
Right.
So first of all, nobody wants to be known for being raped.
No.
And this has already been like a huge public thing, for this person that they've had to endure. And then he goes and does all this, defamation stuff on top of it.
Well, she's got death threats. So she's got security that 24/7 because she gets thousands of death threats, right? She carries a gun on her at all times. I mean, this woman's whole life has been up. I mean, she lives out in the middle of nowhere because it's easier to protect.
Right.
Her whole life has been destroyed and upended because of this shit.
Well, and you know what? Quite frankly, I think she deserves every bit of money that comes to her because she has had all of these threats. Even if you subtract all of the literal, threats to her own personal safety, just being known as a person that was raped by Donald Trump, and then he's got to go smearing you more on top of that. You already don't want to be known for that. And then he has to go running his mouth about you on top of it,
Yeah. Well,
he wants to play the victim here, but
it's actually a little different.
Who's the victim?
It's actually a little different. You think she's actually a fairly successful journalist, so she doesn't care about the money. This is about getting him to stop talking shit about her.
Well,
and making her a target.
I'm sure it's more the point.
Yeah. Well, that's That was how they.
A lot of this stuff is more of a point than anything else.
Yeah, she doesn't care if she gets paid. And in fact, she might get some of the money, but she's probably not going to get all of it. She might get all of it. You never know. But the whole deal was when they started the case, her attorney got up there and he said, look, we don't care about the money. What we care about is what's going to make him stop doing this. Right? And this is the situation. She lives in a secure location with armed guards. She's armed. She's getting hundreds of death threats, thousands of death threats a day from his followers. And he still won't stop talking about her. Right? So what we're asking is you got to figure from a self-proclaimed billionaire, right? What amount of money will make him stop? That's all we're asking. So that was the whole situation of the case. So Alina Habba comes in, asks for adjournment. Judge has to deny her and admonish her. This is stupid. Then she starts trying to produce evidence that hasn't been disclosed, which you can't do. So she's trying to say, hey, this is the evidence, da-da-da, did you say all this? And the judge is like, wait, stop. You have to first show the document to the witness, which in this case was E. Jean Carroll. Ask her, hey, do you recognize this? Then you give it to me and say, Judge, I'd like to submit this as evidence. Right? So he kept having to explain that to her several times. And then finally she did it. She asked E.G. Carroll, do you recognize this? And E.G.'s like, yeah. She's like, Your Honor, may I submit this as evidence? The judge takes a look at it. He's like, there's no numbers on this. There's usually an exhibit number.
Right, like a little sticker or something with a number or like a tag on it or something.
Yeah, and there's usually
right?
Yeah, there's usually an admission where it's like, oh, I admitted this into evidence so that the other attorney could see it. It's called disclosure. The other attorney gets to see evidence that you put in, unless you're trying to impeach somebody, right? But the judge at least gets to see all the evidence and approve it before it gets admitted, right? She's trying to admit shit out of nowhere. She didn't follow any of the steps, and he kept having to admonish her for it and take recesses. He's like, Ms. Habba, we're going to take a recess. You come back, refresh your memory on how to submit evidence, and then you can come back into the courtroom and try again. And he's doing this in front of the jury. And it's humiliating, right? So she doesn't even know she doesn't even know the basics.
This is so stupid. I mean, I don't know all of that. I'm also not an attorney, and I'm not trying to be a trial attorney.
Right.
But if you are representing somebody and you are actually going to a trial, I think that you need to know the rules of how you are supposed to do certain things, like, put your evidence in.
Well, if you've ever seen Law and Order, or if you've ever seen a TV show where there's a trial and the attorney goes up and says, do you recognize this document?
They always say that.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to submit this in evidence as Exhibit C.
Do you recognize the handwriting on this letter? We'd like to admit this letter as...
Yeah, and the judge says,
the
judge will usually say, yeah, sustained or denied or whatever, right? Depends on the evidence. But it's like, then they start questioning the witness about the evidence. You don't just start questioning the witness about the evidence. It has to be approved. Because otherwise I could bring any bullshit into the courtroom. Miss Carroll, did you read this Garfield comic? I mean, it's bullshit. So that whole thing went on. Then it got really bad because this last week, they settled this whole thing on Thursday. But at the beginning of the week, Alina Habba told the judge she was sick and asked for a delay in the court case. And this gets interesting because this is really funny. So this is Ben again. He's going to cover this part because this is crazy.
Coming out about Donald Trump's lawyer Alina Habba's deceit to federal judge Lewis Kaplan in connection with the E. Jean Carroll federal defamation trial against Donald Trump, which resumes today on Thursday. Now, my colleague Michael Popak previously...
So the joke is, she tells the judge, I'm sick, asks for postponement. The judge says, fine, we can all meet up on Thursday, right? Well, going forward, this was so funny to me. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit. This is what happens Monday. A day, like 2 days after she asked the judge for this delay. This is Monday. She said she had COVID. This is how she got out of going to court for the Monday through Wednesday.
And said to a Capitol police officer, quote, "If you are a police officer and you are going to abide by unconstitutional bullshit," I once said to the Capitol police officers on January 6th during the insurrection. But here's the thing. He posted a photo of himself from New Hampshire with Alina Habba. So he posts this photo. He's not even then sure because she's a MAGA influencer.
So this is Monday. This is like a day or two after she told the judge she had COVID. She's in New Hampshire during the primary, taking photos, walking around without a mask in the crowd. Looking fine. She didn't look sick at all. So she lied to postpone court so they could go to New Hampshire. So I mean, it just gets worse and worse. So
like these people, I mean,
oh, she's a scumbag. She's looking at she's in trouble right now. She's looking at losing her bar license because there was a woman that worked at Mar-a-Lago who was, I guess, sexually assaulted or harassed by one of the managers there, and she was going to sue Mar-a-Lago, right, for trying to cover it up, the Trump organization. And Alina Habba became her friend and then told her she'd represent her, and then talked her into taking this bullshit deal where she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement about it. And then after the woman signed it, Alina Habba ghosted her, and it turned out Habba was doing this for Trump the whole time, trying to get his good graces to be his lawyer. So she pretended to represent this woman while she was representing Trump. So right now they're arguing about whether or not they're going to yank her bar license, and she'll be able to practice law ever again. So that case is going on right now too. I mean, she is a total screw up.
Okay, and let's just throw it out there. She's a New York lawyer, right?
New York and
Is she
Florida.
a New York lawyer?
New York and Florida, I think, yeah.
So I'm going to venture to say, and now I'm maybe being a New Yorker that's being a little stuck on New York here, but I'm just going to say this: if New York yanks your license,
oh yeah,
I mean, how's that going to look? You go trying to get yourself licensed in other states, and they're going to take a look at you and be like, New York yanked your license? Like, are you even going to be able to get a license anywhere else?
No.
You know, I mean, I don't know how this process exactly works for the licensing. I know you have to pass bars in different states and all of that jazz. But, I mean, it's huge.
It doesn't matter which state yanks your license. All the states will yank your license at that point.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, honestly, I mean, let's say you're licensed in Florida and New York, and Florida yanks your license for improper behavior. Well, do you think New York's going to be like, oh, well, we're okay with that? No, they're gonna take that case from Florida, and they're gonna make
review as well,
and they're gonna make a ruling on it pretty quick. They're not gonna sit by.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So anyway, I'm going to skip a little bit of this, but so she goes into closing arguments, and her big closing argument was E. Jean Carroll should be grateful that she got raped by Trump because now she's more famous.
I'm sorry. I think I would just rather not get raped.
Yep.
I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah. So we're going to do this. This was kind of...
I got to repeat myself. I'm going to venture to guess pretty much no woman wants to be famous for being raped.
No, nobody wants to be famous for that.
Nobody in their right mind wants to be famous for being raped.
Nope. But
you want to be famous because you did something interesting, right? Or achieved something or whatever. Not for that. That's the most ass-hat thing to say. I made you famous by raping them.
Yeah, she's trying to victim shame and shit. And then she was trying in her closing to say he didn't rape her and all this stuff. And the judge is like, no, you can't say that. You have to disregard, jury, you have to disregard everything she just said because we've already determined it happened. It's already been determined. It's not up for debate. It's not up for discussion. So we're going to do this one breaking news. This was about Trump walking out, and Alina Habba got threatened by the judge, threatened to put her in jail. at one point. It got so out of control.
All right, we do have breaking news. A whole lot going on all of a sudden inside the closing arguments in the defamation damages trial against Donald Trump. Trump walked into the courtroom late. He walked out when the plaintiffs were delivering their closing arguments. At one point, the judge had to warn defense lawyers they were close to being thrown in the lockup. Let's get right to CNN's Kara Scannell, who ran out from inside that courtroom to give us an explanation of what was going on. Kara, what have you been seeing?
Yeah, John, an eventful day this morning, to say the least, that had nothing to do with even the closing arguments. So it began, as you say, when Donald Trump's team was already late, which the judge noted when he took the bench. Then Donald Trump did enter the courtroom, and they were arguing still, before the jury even got in there, about a slide that the Trump's team wanted to use in their presentation. And Carroll's lawyer said it included things that were not in evidence in the case. The judge
Once again, trying to admit evidence that wasn't included. I mean, this is just a fucking shit show. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Where was it? But yeah, no, the whole thing was just a nightmare. And at one point, Hava was being so disruptive, the judge threatened to find her in contempt and have her arrested after the proceeding if she didn't calm down. I mean, it just got bad. But all in all, it still ended Thursday, and this is how it ended. The jury found for the plaintiff $83.3 million in damages.
Aaron's reporting right now that Manhattan federal court on Friday ordered Donald Trump to pay E.G. and Carroll $83.3 million for defaming her. Now, the jury, Phil, according to Katersky's reporting, broke that up into two categories. They awarded $18.3 million in compensatory damages and $65 million in punitive damages. And, obviously this is a ruling that didn't take, as you noted, long for this jury to get to. It took them just under 3 hours. Donald Trump not in court for that. But that is a remarkable number. I mean, they were looking for about $10 million. But then to see the punitive damages for in particular, and Brian would know far better than me, I mean, that's really the jury weighing Donald Trump's statements. And clearly, that is a number that really added a gut punch to Donald Trump.
Yeah, no shit. It's almost $100 million. That's a lot of fucking money. So what ended up happening was, and I'm sure his behavior factored into it, E.G. and Carroll's lawyers were saying, maybe $10 million. That's kind of what they were asking for. They came back and said, okay, compensatory damage, compensation for the victim, right? To compensate her for her damages to her and her losses, right? They said 16 million, whatever it was. A little bit more than that, 18 million, whatever it was. Then they said, okay, punitive damages. Punitive means punishment.
Oh, okay.
So punishment to Donald Trump to try and teach him a lesson.
So his spanking.
Right.
These damages are essentially his spanking.
Right. The first one is, no, give the kid back the toy you took. This is now, right. This is how much time.
Now we're going to give a spanking to the kid who took it.
Right. Or now you got to go stand in the corner, right, for X amount of time. And they said,
enjoy a spanking.
Yeah.
We'll make it a corner.
Yeah. For punitive damages, for the punishment, $65 million. And you can't tell me him walking out of court and his attorney's actions and all that didn't lead to them going, you know what, this guy's a fucking shit show. We really need to hammer it. Otherwise, this is going to keep going on. And I give the jury credit for that. They did that. They did their job. But while they were deliberating, less than 2 hours, actually, they had lunch and then they spent like an hour and some change deliberating, came back, $83 million. That's a short amount of deliberation time. That's a pretty quick decision. On top of that fact, which was so funny, is while the closing arguments were going on, deliberation, and even after they awarded her $83.3 million, Trump has been on Truth Social defaming her again. So now she's got a third defamation case she can bring against him. So she can bring another one of these against him. Even 83.3, he won't learn. He will not fucking learn.
I don't know why I'm shocked he cannot figure it the fuck out. But, like, him opening his mouth keeps being very expensive. At some point, that weaselly little brain of his needs to supply him with the thought, when I open my mouth, it costs me a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
And I say, you know what? You go, girl. You keep throwing those lawsuits at him, because somebody needs to teach this man a lesson. He's been allowed to take away the little kid's toy as much as he wanted his whole life. And then somebody just tells him, oh, it's your toy, Donnie.
yeah.
This is your little toy now. Instead of being like, no, it's not your fucking toy.
Yeah, give it back.
Give the toy back to the person and go stand in that corner and think about what you fucking did.
Yeah, it's 78. I don't think he's going to change. But I think part of it, too, he was kind of elated.
He's not going to change. He'll die before he changes.
Yeah, well, he was elated, I think, because he did win in New Hampshire. Now, he won. He beat Nikki Haley. So it was,
they call it that.
Yeah, DeSantis dropped out and then endorsed Trump. DeSantis, he's just a weird guy. But yeah, so DeSantis is kind of out of it.
I mean, I'm not real surprised.
Yeah, he didn't really have a prayer at this point. He wasn't going to win New Hampshire, and things were looking really bad in South Carolina. Anyway, so Nikki Haley's still in it. Trump beat her 55% to 43. Now, 55% is high, except for the fact that I can't even remember the last time there was a New Hampshire Republican primary where there were only 2 people. It's usually like 7 or 8.
Yeah, usually there's all sorts of people.
So with just two people, 55% really isn't that much, which means she got almost half, which is kind of also what happened in, Iowa, because he only got half. And most of the Nikki Haley voters, when they polled them coming out, the vast majority of them said they were either not going to vote for Trump or were going to vote for Biden if Haley didn't win. So that's almost half the Republican Party, roughly. Like, let's say it's even a third.
Defecting, basically.
Yeah. So, and the Republican Party is really only about 30% of the actual voting populace, right? So if he's lost 10%, or a third of them, that's 20% of the Republicans. Well, Democrats are like 40%, and pretty much all of them are just automatically going to vote for Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So that means he's got to make up all the difference with the independents, and I don't know how he does that. But we're going to watch. So he spoke in New Hampshire, and his speeches have gotten really bad, where almost nobody's showing up. Right? It's just pathetic. And in New Hampshire, they had to it looked like it was crowded, and then when they panned out, they saw all these empty seats, and then what they figured he was on a basketball court, and they put a big, kind of like sheet in the middle to make it look more contained. So it was only like half the court. So he had only a few hundred people there. He's not drawing the crowds anymore. And the speech was so bad, people were walking out while he was giving the speech. Watch this.
You know why? They looked at the polls and they decided we're not going to play there. So next week is Nevada, a great state, and DeSanctimonious just announced he's pulling out of Nevada.
A pretty empty crowd in Manchester, New Hampshire, where Donald Trump was giving a speech on Saturday.
Look at that.
You saw there people.
It was that is just pathetic. So yeah, he won New Hampshire, but it's not pulling the sex appeal that I think he was hoping it would.
Right, like that's why I was like, if you can call it a win, I mean,
yeah,
it technically is, but when you kind of dissect it, like he's not drawing the big crowd.
Mm-mm.
He's like, people are not rushing out in droves for him by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not at all. And the other thing that's really sad about this is that Nikki Haley's staying in, and we'll get into that here in a second, but part of it's because she's still got all the money, all the big donors are with her. So she's going to drag this out and try and siphon as much off of him as possible. Because I think Nikki Haley's planning, her thought is, I'm just going to drag this out as long as I can, keep those donors, and then I'm going to rerun in 28. And that'll be my year to actually take a stab at this. I hope she doesn't win. I don't really like Nikki Haley, but that's what I think her thought process is. On the other side of that coin, Biden also won in New Hampshire, okay? Which was interesting. And Biden won with like 60 or 70% of the Democratic vote. And even the people that voted against him, over 90% said, yeah, we're still going to vote for Biden anyway. right? And I think it was
Right.
he was running. It was Marion Williamson and whoever that other guy is, Dean Scott. I forget his name. He's like the rich guy. Anyway, they didn't do very well. But what was so embarrassing for them, and it's interesting because they're not getting any delegates, so it's kind of a pointless win in New Hampshire for a Democrat. So there's no point. Biden didn't even run. Didn't even put his name on the ballot. And yet he still got 70% of the vote. Why? Because people physically wrote his name in. So he's got his base locked up. And he's got, it looks like,
Wow.
half of Nikki Haley's voters locked up. So things are not looking super great for Trump. But Nikki Haley finally attacked Trump. And there's been some speculation about his mental state because he's not making a lot of sense. I mean, he's never really made a ton of sense, but now he's getting things really messed up. So this is Brian Tyler Cohen, and he's going to cover this a little bit about Trump kind of seems to be mentally declining a little bit here.
Never reports the crowds, you know. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, you know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people.
Hello and welcome to exhibit number 427,912 of Donald Trump's brain in a blender live on stage. Here.
He's right. So
Wow. I mean, that's it. I was sitting there scratching my head being like, what is he talking about even?
That's my point.
God, okay.
Is if you didn't follow politics super closely, nothing that he says makes sense. And even if you follow it really closely, it's still bullshit. And it doesn't make much sense.
We talk about this every single week. I follow it less closely than you do.
Right.
But we talk about this every single week. Therefore, I consider myself to be someone who doesn't follow it really closely, but more or less knows what's going on.
Right. So here,
in all fairness, and I have no idea what the hell he's talking about.
I know. So he said
I should have been able to pick that stuff up.
So he said that he's running against Obama, that he beat Obama in an election. Neither one of those things happened, ever. He never ran against Obama. And frankly, if it was Obama, he'd be getting smoked right now. I mean,
oh gosh, people would be mopping the floor with his head.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
He just have like now he just has the base. He just has the racists and the conspiracy nuts. But yeah, so he was doing that. And the Nikki Haley thing, this is what he was saying. He kept saying Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley. And you could tell he was confused. And this is why. He was trying to say that on January 6th, when the insurrection happened, that Nikki Haley was in charge of security for the House and the Senate. And he offered her 10,000 troops, and she refused him. Right? First off, Nikki Haley wasn't in office. He was thinking of Nancy Pelosi. Second of all, he never offered additional security to Nancy Pelosi. So all of it makes no sense. So he's
getting the wrong person,
the wrong situation,
and got the wrong situation, and even with the situation he's referring to, he has the details all wrong there too.
Absolutely. It's crazy. No, it's
still America. Do you want this man in charge of your country?
Yep.
He's not even sure who he's talking about.
Nope. I mean, and he's just been going.
Not good.
No, he's just been going off. So here was Nikki Haley. We'll skip ahead here. She finally said something, for the love of God. I mean, they have not attacked him. None of the Republicans have attacked him, which makes no sense. Finally, Nikki Haley did.
Last night, Trump is at a rally. And he's going on and on mentioning me multiple times as to why I didn't take security during the Capitol riots. Why I didn't handle January 6th better. I wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th. I wasn't in office then. They're saying he got confused, that he was talking about something else. He was talking about Nancy Pelosi. He mentioned me multiple times in that scenario. The concern I have is I'm not saying anything derogatory, but when you're dealing with the pressures of a presidency, we can't have someone else that we question whether they're mentally fit to do this. We can't.
And of course, before anybody throws a parade because of Nikki
Honestly,
Haley's
she
newfound
nailed that.
courage, we'll see if she.
Well, yeah, she's been kissing his ass this whole time, so she's no saint for doing that.
No, but the point is really, really true.
Yeah.
And she handled it in. I'm not pretending that I like her or whatever in particular, but she handled it in a way that doesn't feel dirty. Like she handled it well, I think.
Yeah.
And the point is valid. I just said the same point. Do you want somebody as a president that is going to be literally confused about this stuff?
Well, that's the thing. Is it's like Biden's old, but at least he knows where he is. Trump had that whole thing where he was in Sioux City, and he kept calling it Sioux Falls. And then when he got off the stage, the guy said, "Well, no, you're actually in Sioux City." And then Trump's like, "Oh, okay." And then he got back on stage, and he just kept saying Sioux City over and over and over again, like he was, like nobody noticed that he was confused about where he was. But I mean, it happens, I guess. We're happy to be doing our show here in America. It's like,
America.
yeah.
America.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who thinks George Washington invaded airports during this Revolutionary War. I mean, he is fucking gone. Oh man, he's got nothing.
Listen, people's mental faculties do start to, slip away from them. And if that's really what's happening there, you cannot have somebody running your country if their mental faculties are literally slipping away from them.
Yeah. Well, and I think, his father had dementia. Plus, he had a bunch of sores on his hand earlier this week that people noticed. And there was some speculation that maybe he has syphilis. And that might be why he's mentally declining so rapidly. I think he's also doing just a shit ton of Adderall. So he's probably stoned half the time. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out for him. In the meantime, Nikki Haley is staying in it. And kind of an interesting reason why you would stay in it. So she lost Iowa. She lost New Hampshire. She's probably going to lose South Carolina, which is funny because she was the governor of South Carolina. So that'll be embarrassing. But she's going to stay in it anyway. And here's Joy Reid from the Readout. And she's going to cover why Nikki Haley's staying in. I think this is fascinating.
If you are an American oligarch with tons of cash to burn and you've had it with Donald Trump, what would your dream candidate look like? It would probably be someone with governing experience who's already dependent on you for their lifestyle. Someone who sounds a lot like Nikki Haley, the Republican candidate who the Washington Post noted after leaving government in 2018 improved her financial position dramatically, making millions from private consulting, paid speeches, and spots on corporate boards. Because her hawkish pro-business policies speak for your issues if you're a billionaire, right? She's pro-drilling, pro-military industrial complex. She's also willing to sign a national abortion ban, but buries her position in a lot of mealy-mouthed answers about consensus. In other words, she's a normie right-wing blank slate for the donor class. Like the Charles Koch-backed super PAC that raised $70 million last year to stop Trump and has since endorsed and funded Nikki Haley.
So that's the beauty of Nikki Haley, is she's a millionaire simp for the billionaire class. She's somebody easy to pay off. These people are now backing her heavily. So she's got millions pouring in. Now, not as much. Her and Trump combined don't have nearly as much as Biden. But she's still getting a lot of big money from these donors. So she's going to keep sucking as much money as she can into her PAC. And she's going to use some of that in 2028. And she's going to use some of that to siphon from Trump now. And that's probably why they're still giving her money, is they think, hey, maybe you can siphon enough votes here to prevent Trump from getting reelected. So it's worth it for us to give you $10 million, $100 million to prevent that. So she's got a good place here where she could actually be she could damage Trump. And that's why I think she started going on the attack, is because I think her donors are like, no, now's the time to go for the throat. You've been kissing his ass for too long. You want our money? You bring him down. And she's enough of a shill that she'll do whatever they tell her for the money.
Right.
So yeah, she's gonna stay in this as long as the money keeps flowing in. She might stay in this whole thing till fucking September for all we know.
You know what? Good for her. Like I said, I'm not pretending that I like her, but the siphoning off of him is pretty great.
Yeah,
so
even when she loses on Super Tuesday, she might go, well, I'm going to run as an independent just to keep getting that fucking sweet, sweet money coming in. Wouldn't shock me. Anyway, you better we take a break real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll cover. We're back. Lacey's got snacks and coffee. Anyway, so this is why Nikki Haley is so interesting. Now, I know a lot of Trumpers, you guys are going to watch this and write horrible things about us, which is great. We love them. Keep it up. Just, watch. Subscribe. You can hate us more if you subscribe. See?
Subscribe and hate us in the comments below.
Absolutely. We'll take it. Anyway, so Davos was also last week. And I know you guys will sit there and go, why would all these billionaires want to go with Haley instead of Trump? Well, Davos, that was one of the big discussions. So the two big...
All right, hold on. Let me throw my 2 cents in there before we even go to Davos.
Sure.
He's a loose cannon. So if you are asking yourself, there's more stuff, but do you really think you're going to be able to control what he does?
Right.
Nikki Haley is going to be the person whose actions you can probably maneuver more. Trump, you have no idea what he's going to say or do or whatever.
Well, right.
Kind of a loose cannon.
Well, plus you have to remember, when Trump got into office, he inherited a pretty good economy from Obama. It took a long time on the recovery. And, I have my quibbles with Obama, but he inherited a pretty good economy, and it chugged forward, and he didn't really do much. That Congress under him was the second, most inefficient compared to the current Congress, which is now the most inefficient, the Republican Congress.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at that. The second most inefficient Congress. Right now we got such a shit show in there, nothing can happen.
Well, I know. It's always with conservatives. Look, I thought Bush was going to be the worst president of my lifetime. How naive was I?
I have often said, especially during the, Trump era, I was like, I never thought in my right mind I'd be begging for a Bush to be back in office.
Yeah.
I never thought that I would have a thought like that.
Well, anyway, so he inherited that, but the economy slowly got a little bit worse under his presidency. It didn't do terrible. He still had good stock market returns and all that. But then the pandemic came and he did nothing really. It screwed that whole thing up. We had more deaths than any other country by per capita, no matter how you spin it. We have more sick people. He totally botched that, tanked the complete economy. Biden comes in during the pandemic, during a terrible economy, and now the economy is booming again, and we'll cover that here in a little bit. But that's what Davos is worried about, because right now you have the situation in Gaza, and we're not going to have time to cover it today, but the ICJ, the International Court, pretty much just found that, Israelis are committing genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. That's tremendous to actually use the word genocide in their finding. Right?
Yeah.
On top of that fact, because it's been so bad there, you have 10 other Arab countries, Muslim countries, that are now involved in that conflict. Right? Plus you have the situation in Ukraine. Plus there's a dozen other conflicts on top of that. We're peaking for numbers of conflicts right now. It hasn't been this bad in a long time. And right now, Biden, I'm saying, I'll sit there and say, I don't think he's doing a great job on Israel. And I think he should be pushing harder to help Ukraine and get this settled. But the bottom line is, between him and Trump, who, Trump's not going to do anything. Plus, they're more worried about what Trump's going to do to trade, because under Trump, inflation shot up because he started a trade war with China, which goes back to Peter Navarro, who's now looking at jail, 4 months in jail. But here's what they were talking about at Davos. I skipped a little bit ahead, but this is Ian Bremmer, and they're reporting from Davos. But this was the big concern. And Davos is all the really rich billionaire people get together and talk about philanthropy and business and what's going on for the next year. But this was one of the big topics.
I don't think there's a near-term risk in the sense that once Trump gets the nomination, which is virtually certain, that he will be so much more powerful in the Republican Party. I mean, overnight, he'll have the loyalty of pretty much everybody, the endorsements, the money, the media attention. And that means that his policy pronouncements, to the extent that he makes them, will suddenly have a lot more impact. For example, in pushing not to provide any support for the Ukrainians, or in giving the Iranians a much tougher run in responding to their support for proxy wars in the region. Do I think that's going to have a big economic impact? Not near term. If Trump wins, of course, last time around there was a positive market impact to Trump winning. Why? Massive near-term deficit spending, markets like that, regulatory rollback, markets like that, and also lower taxation. This time around, that would also be true, but it would be counterbalanced by so much of the concerns of American credibility, even creditworthiness, around a U.S. that is so dysfunctional, so polarized, and where a new McCarthyism could emerge that would really chill red versus blue, including investability of red versus blue states under a Trump-led political administration. That wasn't a risk in 2016. That would be a risk in 2025.
So he makes a phenomenal point there, which is in 2016, it was kind of an unknown, and we knew he was going to cut regulations and he was going to blow up the deficit, and they were going to try and lower taxes, which they did, and we covered last time. And that's even going to backfire here next year. Especially if Trump's in office, taxes are going to go way up for the middle class and the lower classes. On top of that fact, it's just the instability in the world, and then, of course, the instability with our credit and our ability to pay our bills. And then you're talking about Republicans want more cutting, which means the average American consumer is going to be facing trade wars in China, which is going to increase inflation and the cost of everything. They're going to be paying more in taxes, right? Deficit spending is going to be through the roof, and Republicans are going to want to cut as much social safety net as possible. So the average American is going to have, plus student loans and all that stuff, which Biden's trying to mitigate. So what you're looking at is the average American is going to have a lot less money. So the largest consumer on the planet, the United States, is going to have less to go to the store with, which sucks if you're a business anywhere in the world.
Right.
So Davos is really scared. That's why they're dumping all this money with Haley. The other problem they're concerned about is climate. And I wanted to cover this a little bit. The Wall Street is really panicking about Trump being president again, because they foresee, maybe in the short term we'll see some gains, but they're afraid that over 4 years it's going to start tanking things, because the U.S. is going to be more unstable, and it's going to be difficult to make money. The other big key issue is climate change. So we're going to look at this. This is The Economist. Is one of my favorite magazines, but if you guys have never read The Economist, they do some great reporting. So climate change is a big issue, and it's going to negatively affect businesses pretty dramatically. So here's global surface temperatures. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So the red line, the big red line here is the big one. So the planet's getting hotter and hotter, and you're having more of what they call El Niños, which is part of the natural climate cycle, but they boost temperatures even more. And now we're getting more and more of those because of climate change. So they're boosting the temperatures even more, which means less crops, which means governments are going to have to start cracking down harder on climate change because it's going to affect jobs. It's going to affect the ability to produce products and goods. It's going to make it difficult to mine and things like that in certain areas because the weather is going to be so terrible. And you're going to see more storms, more hurricanes, more fires. And we're seeing more and more of those every year. So there's a big concern in Davos about how much is this going to cost commerce and business. We're going to lose a lot because we won't be able to do that. And governments are going to have to start cracking down harder, which means more fines, more regulations, which cost a lot more money. Right? So there's a huge concern with the wealthy, the business community, about a Trump presidency. And typically, Biden's got all the labor unions backing him, but he also sort of kind of has these businesses backing him, these larger companies. Not that they want to back him directly because because he's going to push more regulation and they don't like that. And they don't want to be seen doing that. So what they're doing is they're doing the underhanded thing. And they're like, let's give Nikki Haley money and see if she can't undercut Trump a little bit. Because now we all have a common enemy.
Right.
Which is the right-wing MAGA nut jobs who are just going to tank the economy and the business world. Now, I wanted to go into this because this is the other big thing that's being pushed from the MAGA side. Is they are now pushing climate change denial again, even though this has been settled for like 20 plus years. Now they're saying, oh, climate change isn't real. So this is Matt Walsh. He's a total douchebag. He's taken a break from spitting on trans people to deny that the climate is changing. Well, his trans thing, he tried that. It didn't really work out for him because it turns out it's not the problem he thinks it is. But anyway, watch this. This just cracks me up. This is the Daily Wire. This is Matt Walsh.
Now, it's common knowledge at this point that pretty much every prediction that's ever been made by climate activists has turned out to be completely false. But for the most part, all along, there's one thing these activists have been smart enough to do, which is they've typically made predictions that were pretty far out into the future. They didn't say anything that could be proven wrong, within a couple of months. They knew enough to create some distance between their prediction.
That's not true. The science has actually all been proven. I mean, there's a greater consensus among the scientific community that climate change is real than there is for evolution.
I don't understand why we're still arguing about whether it's real or not.
It's so stupid. But that's the thing is, and I've had this discussion before. When I say the scientific consensus, right, I'm not talking, this is what people don't get. When they do a scientific consensus, it's not a poll. Okay? It's not like somebody called up a bunch of scientists and said, hey, where do you stand on climate change? That's not how that works. What they do is they take all the available research, right? Thousands and thousands of studies. They put a council together, they review it, and they review what the findings of all the research are, put it together, make a data chart, and say, hey, 96% of the studies that we saw determined climate change is real. That's the consensus. It's the research. It's not like you're calling and asking opinions. That's what they don't get. And he doesn't understand that either, that when they say that it's real, it's because that's what all the evidence is pointing to. That's how science works. Could it be wrong? Sure. Sometimes we're wrong. But you know what happens? You know what proves that it's wrong? Better and more science. So it just amazes me. But this is the grift they're spinning. And he makes a ton of money spinning this to the MAGA crowd because this is what they want to hear. They want to hear it's not true.
And the day that you could theoretically point to that prediction and say, well, that didn't pan out. And there are a lot of examples of this phenomenon. There's Leonard Nimoy, aka Mr. Spock, claiming in a 1978 television special that, quote, during the lifetime of our grandchildren, Arctic cold and perpetual snow could turn most of the inhabitable portions of our planet into a polar desert. And that TV special was called The Coming Ice Age. And of course, by the time Mr. Spock's prediction was falsified, he was near death. So no one was going to.
Okay. It wasn't falsified. This is what they don't understand. So when you have extreme, like globally, the world's getting hotter, right? It doesn't mean it's getting hotter everywhere. It just means aggregate, right? So the last ice age was caused by a huge global warming event caused by volcanic eruptions, whatever it was, 60, 70,000 years ago. And that led to an ice age through global warming, because all of it got pushed down to the equatorial parts of the planet, while the rest of the planet got freezing cold, even though the planet was a lot hotter. This is now man-made climate change through greenhouse gases.
Right.
So yeah, it's possible. He wasn't proven wrong. He didn't say, oh, it's going to happen by March 3rd of 2020. He didn't say any of that shit. He just said this is a possibility of what's happened in the past.
It's funny how this man is spinning the fact that he's basically, taking our need for instant gratification and trying to use it against science. Oh, well, it just so happens that they can't prove that true fast enough, so it must just not be. Oh, that's convenient. Well, I mean, That's just like how it works. Like we won't see this 20 minutes later. It's a slow thing. What do you want?
I know. Well, let's see if we can get to this point real quick. I want to show this real quick, just to give you guys a sense of how we know some of this stuff.
Hold him accountable or say, I told you so, when he was on his deathbed, which I guess is sort of understandable. Then there was that infamous 1989 article from the Associated Press citing it.
Let's skip ahead a little bit here.
And we all know
this is on a daily
so stupid
basis going back thousands and millions of years. But if you try to fact check that claim from John Kerry, you'll find a bunch of articles declaring that he was right. They'll say this is indeed the hottest year ever, and it's all because Mother Earth doesn't like your truck or your grill or the way you vote. None of these articles will mention the recent volcanic eruption in the Pacific Ocean, which we've talked about, that blasted a huge plume of water vapor into the atmosphere. They won't tell you how that likely trapped heat and raised the global temperatures.
Yeah, they will. Yes, the scientists factor all that shit in. Oh, man, this is so stupid.
That are also being recorded this year. In some cases, we're being told record cold temperatures. Turns out it hasn't been hot everywhere, contrary to what John Kerry says. So take a look at what's happening in Europe right now. According to an article from yesterday in Reuters, for example, quote, temperatures in Siberia dipped to minus 56 Celsius as record snow blankets Moscow.
Which is what I was just talking about. When you get global warming, it's aggregate, right, of the whole planet, what ends up happening is it tends to center itself, and then it gets colder on different areas, which is why you now get huge storms. So I don't know if anybody knows this. So here in Oregon, we had what's called the Pineapple Express through most of the winter. So it was in the 60s and 70s here in Oregon all through December. Why? Because there was a massive Arctic storm in Alaska that pushed all the heat from the equator from near Hawaii up to Oregon. So it was great weather. It was like spring weather here all through December. And then when that storm ended, blam, snow, and it's freezing. I mean,
right.
But that doesn't normally happen. That's a bizarre event. But that's what's causing this stuff. He also gets into this whole thing about, well, how do the scientists know what the temperatures were 50, 60,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago? How do they know, right? They can't. There's no way they could possibly know that. And that's the other argument you'll hear. And this is how we know. And I'm going to show you this clip here from the Natural History Museum, where they explain how they determine what the weather, what the climate was like. Not the weather, the climate.
The drill works on a winch. So when we lower the drill down, we drill about 1.5 meters of ice, and then we bring that to the surface, and we lower the drill back down again and drill the next 1.5 meters of ice. And we keep on repeating that process over and over again until we reach the bottom of the ice sheet. When we drill down through the ice sheet, we're drilling further and further back in time. We drilled an ice core that was 364 meters long, and the ice that we recovered from the bottom of that ice core is over 20,000 years old. This is a part of Antarctica where climate is changing really quickly at the moment, and the temperature has warmed by over 2 degrees in the last 50 years. We're seeing
that's 50 years. It's a huge chunk of that continent. That's like the size of a state melted off. On top of that fact, when they do that, when they do the ice cores, you can test the iron in the water when it was oxidized, so you can get a good sense of what the climate was like 30,000, 20,000 years ago. If they go deeper into some of the deeper ones, they can go back 60, 70,000. So that's how they know. They can tell you what the climate was like based on the chemical deposits in the ice. And we're talking about water that hasn't been in liquid form in 20, 30, 40,000 years, whatever it is. So that's how they know. So it's not like there isn't good science behind all this that proves this. And the bigger issue is
it's not a wet finger in the wind.
Well, no. And here's the other thing is, for Republicans always and conservatives always saying they're corporate based, corporations don't deny climate change. Why? Because it's going to affect their ability to do business. And we'll watch a real quick clip from The Economist on this, because I think it's interesting to note that businesses, big corporations, they don't deny any of this shit. They might publicly deny it because they want to make more money, but in private, this is what they're talking about in their boardrooms. Let's see.
In the corporate world, like never before. Massive devastation. Heavy regulation.
The world's worst emitting companies, even the worst medium emitting companies, are on borrowed time.
And lots more litigation.
PG&E's billion-dollar payout.
On Volkswagen pleading guilty in Detroit for cheating on emissions rules.
COVID-19 has highlighted the perils of failing to prepare.
Businesses refuse to change. We will go the way of the dinosaur.
There's ash that is falling.
Staving off the catastrophe of climate change requires a rewiring of the entire global economy. This spells huge opportunities for some.
The economic opportunity of this green revolution is not less than the original industrial revolution.
But can the corporate world react and adapt in time?
So that's the big catch here, which is, and I love that they brought up COVID, because part of what caused COVID was rising temperatures in China from pollution, which is how that disease was able to manifest. That disease is a virus. But you're going to see more and more of those massive viruses coming. And COVID is now endemic. It's going to be part of our lives forever now. It's like it's like the flu. It adapts so quickly, it's never going to go away.
Right. I was going to say it's going to be like the flu, your annual flu shot, your annual COVID shot, and what is coming next. It would be foolish of us to think that there are no more coming.
No. But it's part of all of this is kind of related to climate change. Now, the other upside of that, and this is why these big corporations are talking about this, is, and it's funny when Republicans bitch about electric vehicles and stuff, and part of it's because the time frame sucks for like GM and some of these other companies that didn't prepare. But now they're starting to realize, holy shit, the new green bubble, the new technology advance, this is a huge opportunity to revamp and make a shit ton of money. There is a ton of business opportunity and commerce opportunity in helping alleviate climate change. So this is what's been going on in Davos. This is what the corporations are talking about. They're concerned about the political stability of the United States if Trump is president again. They're concerned about climate change and ongoing catastrophes. And they're concerned about the ongoing conflicts and wars. That all these things affect their ability to do business. Which goes back to why they're more excited about Biden and Nikki Haley than they are about Trump. So I just thought that was interesting to bring all that up.
It is super interesting, and people don't always connect the dots in thinking about climate change and business and the economy, and those dots really do connect. So actually, I think it was, there was a lot to it, but I think this is a good thing to bring up and for us to think. This is not only about, the planet for our children's children. This is a financial matter too.
Well,
and people can make some money, if they're getting into the business of dealing with this now, but it also affects business down the pipeline.
Well, right, and
it affects business either way. So which way do we want this to go?
Well, right, and if you're the kind of person, if you're somebody who is a worker like we are, you got to think about what kind of industries should I be looking into, because coal mining is going to go pretty much the way of the dinosaur. The demand for coal is going to completely bottom out. I mean, there's not a ton of demand right now. There are less and less coal mines than there was 20 or 30 years ago, because it's just not making any money. Fossil fuels are going to start to go that way too. I mean, it's just how it is. So you got to think about long term. What are you trying to accomplish? It's still going to be a while before fossil fuels are a thing of the past, but the sooner the better. Anyway, so that was the news for today. A lot to cover, I know, but just a lot of this is going to be an important election that's going to determine a lot of what goes on just in the world and our ability to survive and thrive and maintain quality of life. I mean, it's all in the ballot this year. They always say it's the most important election, but they're usually right because it does matter. But we're going to move on, and we're going to do some fun stuff. Let's talk about... Oh, okay. You're going to love this. So, Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan Experience. Look, we've covered...
And it's always an experience.
Yep. Look, now, this is the majority report's going to cover this. That we're going to kind of clip from them. But, we've talked about, the trans thing's overblown. They're a small community, and they deserve rights and blah, blah, blah. And it's not really the big thing. Trans people are not out there attacking people or trying to turn people trans or gay or whatever. That's not a thing.
Why would they be trying to convert anybody?
Right. Right. And giving them rights is not a threat to the natural order. People aren't going to get assaulted more. None of that's, Joe Rogan's found the evidence that proves us wrong.
Oh yeah. My.
Oh yeah. He's
oh boy.
And the majority report's going to cover it. This is devastating. We might have to apologize and say we were wrong here, Lace. We'll see. Oops, here we go.
Your own narrative. Here is more of Joe Rogan spreading misinformation, disinformation. Who knows?
I was never heard a crowd over a minute of people screaming at the top of their lungs as he's walking in. Nuts. This country is fed up. Yeah. This is a fed up country. Yeah. The mainstream media can say all the shit they want, and they're trying, but the people aren't buying it.
No, and that's the perfect example right there is, 20,000 people or whatever, like losing their minds when the dude's walking to the cage. It's like, there's no fighter that gets that, but the country, it's like, you can tell. You just talk to people or see what's going on. It's like, you could tell.
Well, there's people.
So they're talking about, there was a fighter, an MMA fighter who just did a fight, and he's very anti-gay, anti-trans. Basically made a bunch of horrible comments. Said, if he found out one of his kids was gay or trans, he would feel like a failure as a parent and all this shit. It's just terrible. He was talking shit to the reporters, and it just got really ugly. But they're talking about, he still did the thing, went to the arena, people were still cheering. It's like, okay, great, but it doesn't really prove anything. But now they're going to get into the meat, the evidence that this is a problem, the trans agenda.
The trans agenda. Oh my goodness.
Did you see it? Okay, let's play it. Let's see it. Pull it up, producer.
Play.
That's slick.
It was slick. I was like, it was just cool, dude. Though it was funny.
It's a weird time because there's people in this country that want to think he's Hitler.
I know. Yeah.
It's very strange.
Like, you couldn't convince me otherwise. Just hanging out with the guy. I'm like, man.
Well, you know, it's just the media narrative. I mean, so many people were fed this lie that the Russia collusion.
Yeah.
Was this
They're talking about how great Trump is, because that's his audience. That's where he makes his money.
You're talking about? Let me see what this one says. I don't think it is.
By the way, the same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports.
Yeah, they made that.
I guess one that Jews will not replace us. That's another one.
Antifa setting that, like.
So in this one, he's got a different guy on who's wheezing the whole time. He's an old guy. But they're talking about the same
First
stuff.
of all, I haven't heard about Antifa for about 4 years now. But to the extent that they were showing up, it was to protest Patriot Prayer and other fascist, fascist groups.
They were there to protect clergy members at protests.
Yeah.
And they were at Black Lives Matter protests, but Antifa became a way for Trump and other Republicans to say black people rioting without actually saying it, because they were worried about how that might come across.
That's true. All right, so here we go. The trans issue.
Start civil unrest in order to push a narrative about a political movement that the people are tired of Trump, they're evil, they're hateful. You know what? Jim Brewer has a fucking great bit.
Oh, God.
About the Women's March. There you go. Because remember when Trump was in office, the Women's March? The Women's March goes, yeah, you knew who a woman was then. Great. That a great joke? That's only 2016. 2016.
Yeah, that's a great joke. That was super funny. I was at the Women's March. There were a lot of people at the Women's March. Oh, they're just so stupid. I mean, and you know you're in deep shit when you say Jim Brewer had a good joke. Jim Brewer didn't have a good joke. Brewer's an idiot. Anyway.
And also, there were trans women at I was there. I mean, there was many diverse people at the Women's March. So it's just, but now it's going to be crazier.
Running a women's organization who says he's a woman. It's a crazy fucking world. You see this video? There's this lady in Chicago, and this guy is trying to use the women's room, and she's going in there with her daughter, and this guy has a full beard, just a full beard, and she's yelling at him. She's like, you are a whole man. And he's like, I am a woman. And big, deep breath, deep voice, big husky guy with a fucking beard. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? Is this being kind? Is that what this is? Is this being open-minded and compassionate? Or is this opening the door to fucking psychopaths? This is it. Yeah, click this. Look at this. Video.
Don't get in my face. Do not get in my face. Don't get in my face. Don't get in my face.
Look at the size of that dude.
You see my door right here? You right here? No. You need to go over after the meeting. You need to go over after the meeting. You is a man. A whole grown man. I'm sorry. I don't know what.
We see this guy. This guy's a big dude. There he is, with a beard.
On my birthday. Okay. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.
Hey, man, use another bathroom.
Excuse me?
Just use another bathroom. There's a child in there.
What? Me.
That's a child. That's a child in there.
This is journalism.
Use the bathroom.
Okay. I'm a woman. What's the matter? What's the matter? You guys mind your business. This is my business. This is where world is coming to. I don't know what you're about.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing, Lacey. So there's the evidence that by giving trans people rights, we're opening it up for perverts to use bathrooms and assault little girls and women. So Joe Rogan showed us the evidence, and that's a real thing. He just said it was a real thing. Okay, so we might have been wrong about this whole thing. Let's watch some more.
The people that want to deny that
I don't think so.
To let you know that is, in fact, not a real
I think we have to keep it going, though.
Oh, it's not a real thing. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
That is my business. That's my business. This is where world is coming to. I don't know what you're about.
That's a real thing. Now, the people who want to deny that that's a real thing, you're doing a disservice for everyone. You're doing a disservice to all the innocent women that have to go into those bathrooms and don't feel safe. And you're doing a disservice to real trans people. There's going to be a bunch of people that game your system. And there's got to be a bunch of perverts with fucking beards who want to go where the little girls are shitting. People are out of their minds. There's a certain percentage of people that are out of their fucking minds. It doesn't mean that all trans people are bad. It doesn't mean that all trans people are out of their minds. It means that you have to know what's crazy and what's not. And that's fucking crazy.
Reading, yes. You have to know.
So, Lacey, we have to know what's crazy. We don't know what's crazy. Joe Rogan knows what's crazy.
He just made a point. I think he made a point in there. And then he went and basically said his own point was wrong.
Well, maybe not. It gets worse. Trust me. This is a gift for Lacey. She didn't know about this, so.
Trying to get into a bathroom when a mother and her daughter are in there.
What has this got to do with trans anything?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The cops weren't called.
Well, it's Chicago, right?
And what happens if the cops come now? What happens in that situation if the cops come? There was no assault.
What happens in San Francisco, they might arrest that lady.
You guys,
they might arrest her for being a bigot.
Shoot the sketch.
Who knows, man?
Go ahead, keep going. Keep going.
It's Narnia out there. It's a fantasy world. People have lost their fucking mind, and I think it's engineered. I think that China has been TikToking these fucking people into a coma. Which and all those little videos where, trans awareness and maybe you're trans and there are no genders, just psychos like that guy now think that the culture has moved to the point where they can kind of get away with it.
His eyes.
Maybe the culture's changed their opinion on things. I think I can get away with this. I think I can wear my full beard with my dick out and go around women. And there's gonna be guys like that, just like there's real trans people. There's gonna be guys that are crazy, that take advantage of this thing that I think has been at least partially engineered by other countries. I think the algorithm supporting that and push.
No. It's engineered. See, by other countries.
He's worried about men that are either perverts or mentally unstable or both, pulling their dicks out at women's bathrooms.
Yeah, that's what's going on. There's going to be perverts. We don't understand this, Lacey. Joe Rogan understands it, and this was set up by China and TikTok to try and destroy our country from within.
Chinese are trying to make going to the bathroom in America problematic, basically.
Yeah. Well, and this is the same. Remember, he talked about Russia interfering in the 2016 election, and he called that a hoax, even though we have evidence that that's what they did. Right? But no, this is China. It's trying to get male perverts to dress in drag so they can go into bathrooms and, I don't know, assault women. And he's got video proof of it.
Oh,
now,
boy.
the thing I love about this is, first off, I'm more concerned about who was filming that. Who's standing outside of a woman's bathroom just filming?
That's super weird too, right?
The whole video is just weird. But let's get into
it. And can we offer, unless I missed something, I don't think this person that they were filming had a dick out.
No.
I failed to see anybody with a dick out trying to enter. I mean, I guess I would be concerned if somebody came and had their dick out in their hand and start trying to come into a woman's bathroom. That would concern me. I don't think that this is a trans issue, but yes, I guess if somebody pulls their dick out and starts coming toward my women's bathroom that I'm trying to go to, I would be concerned. Yeah. But he didn't show us a video of somebody with their dick out trying to enter a bathroom.
No. No, just
No.
somebody claiming to be a trans woman. Anyway, it's even dumber than you think.
Pushing that out to people. People are super easily influenced, man. Super easily influenced.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Pause it. Actually,
people are super easily influenced. Watch
really,
this.
they are super easily influenced. I mean, imagine how influenced some people might be by their favorite podcaster who speaks with authority, who's out there, gets paid $100 million by a corporation that has, like, I mean, I don't believe everything that's in print, but I mean, if you got a company that is spent $100 million on one of the biggest podcasts in the world, people are easily influenced. It's true. It's almost like we shouldn't have nefarious actors out there trying to influence people. And those people who do have big influence should have a responsibility to actually have a single iota of knowledge and sort of done a single moment of work to know that what they're saying has any basis in reality or truth. It's almost just like that. Continue.
God, another commercial.
I wish I would have known about the farmer's dog a lot sooner.
Do you make it
3, 2, 1.
this thing where you just have to accept everything that happens to be trans? Everything is fine as long as you call it trans. Well, then what about perverts? Don't you think perverts are going to game that
Still
system?
against the law, Joe.
This is a Willy Wonka golden ticket for perverts. No, that's what it is.
Wasn't there a
It's still illegal to assault somebody in a bathroom or to flash somebody in a bathroom. It doesn't change anything. It's so
A couple years ago about some chick saying that we need pedophiles.
I'm looking through comments on this saying that this video we just watched is satire. Yeah, I've seen other videos like this where there are people that, I don't know who they are, but there are groups of people that will make videos like this that make them seem real.
Sketch groups?
God, that lady's a great actress.
I'm not saying it is, but I'm looking at a lot of comments.
It's her fault.
Stage, just
She was too good at
Well,
it.
they might be right. But that lady, if that's true, that lady's a fucking great actress. Because that lady really did seem like someone who was very flustered and was trying to...
So he does this whole thing about, there's a threat to giving trans people rights because perverts are going to game the system, and that's a real thing, and I got the video to prove it. And look, these people are easily influenced and suckered, and they don't know what they're talking about, and people get tricked all the time. And oh, wait, this is a hoax?
He was easily influenced and suckered. He was easily influenced and suckered.
And then, of course, after he's lectured everybody about you need to know what's really going on and da-da-da, and I get suckered, then he realizes, oh, wait, his producers tell him, no, that was satire. That didn't really happen. Oh, well, she's a really good actress, man.
Oh, you just can't make this stuff up, can you?
Well, you know what's so funny about it, too, is how his producer figures it out? His producer looks at the comments. And then furthermore, if you go to the video on that guy's page that did that video, his YouTube page, like ours, where it has a description, says, I do satirical videos. Nothing on this is real.
So,
he discloses that on his fucking about page.
So he discloses that basically everything that he posts is satire in some way.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
One left click on the guy's YouTube page, and they would have known that this was bullshit. But they aired it anyway, and then Joe gives a big lecture about people are idiots and they don't know what's real and blah, blah, blah. and he's talking about himself, and he doesn't even fucking realize it. He's my fucking hero, man. Oh, God. It's hilarious.
That's amazing.
Oh, man. Anyway, we're getting up. We have some economy stuff. We can go over that next time. We can go over the Gen Z stuff next time. I think we should just wrap up for now. But I was like, I just wanted to end with that because that's just so fucking...
That's pretty great.
Well, my favorite part is look, first off, people, the trans people assaulting people in the bathroom thing, it's basically an imaginary crime. It doesn't occur. I mean, it's about as likely as a unicorn's doing a drive-by against the gnomes of Mars. It's like it doesn't happen.
Listen, you know, if that happened, it would be all over the news.
Absolutely. Fox would be
all over the news.
Fox would do it 48 hours on that. The other thing is, not only is it not really a thing, and I know they'll love to quote this statistic where trans people are 7 times more likely to be involved in some sort of sexual assault or violent sexual assault. What they don't tell you when they tell you that is, yeah, they're 7 times more likely to be involved as the victim, not as the perpetrator.
Not the one perpetrating the crime. I was going to say as the victim. Yeah.
So it's just this. Oh man, it's all bullshit. But it's China. China's invading it, and da-da-da. I mean, he just goes on these wild, crazy, fucking conspiracy nonsense, talking about how we're all idiots because we don't know, and then boom, it blows up in his face. Oh, she's man, that woman's a great actress. Anybody would have fallen for that.
That was an experience. That was definitely an experience.
But I still love that whole. I still can't even get over the fact that it's like these people are falling for all this stupid shit, and then he falls for it. Oh, well, that's because the woman was so talented that anybody would have fallen for that. At no point we were sitting there going, "This is what the fuck is with this?" The whole time, you were like, "I don't even buy this shit."
Yeah, well, like, I mean, there were just so many things.
Yeah. Well, who's filming a woman's public bathroom? That was what tipped me off right away. Who's standing there filming a women's public bathroom?
Right. And if I mean, my thinking is, if some sort of weird drama starts unfolding and people do start filming it, it's not that clear of a filming usually. Like, it's sort of like shaky, bumpy, you know what I mean? Like, that was very steady.
Yeah, that was like on a tripod kind of, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. As opposed to like a handheld, somebody just like, oh, let me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just weird. Anyway, most of the time it's like, yeah, you know, if he wasn't a trans woman, but if it was a trans woman, she looked semi-masculine and she wanted to go in there, go to the bathroom. You go to the bathroom. I mean, you don't have to interact with them. The women's bathroom, you guys have separate stalls. So it's not like you're seeing each other. I mean,
no.
You know, I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Oh, let me see if I can find this right. I wanted to show this clip, or not clip, but picture. Let's see if I can find it. This was kind of a famous one. Here it is. So, this is when they passed the bill about some of those where you had to go into the bathroom that matched your sex at birth. All right. See this guy in the cowboy hat? Right here? On the top right? Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on that. All right. So these, So these guys, all right, this is a trans man, and he has to use the woman's bathroom. Do you see how awkward that is for everybody?
Super awkward.
I mean,
super awkward.
This guy does not belong here. You know, he might belong on his own brand of barbecue sauce, but I don't think he belongs in that bathroom. So the whole thing is so stupid, and yet Joe Rogan fell right into it. Just funny shit. Anyway, that's kind of our show for today.
Okay.
I had to end on that. It was just
Joe Rogan gave us an experience, as always.
Yep. I'm sorry. If you're a Joe Rogan fan, yeah, leave it in the comments. You know what? Email us. Come on the show. And remember to like and subscribe so you can hate us more.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway,
Cool.
where can everybody catch you, Lazy?
All right, as always, you can catch me at mysensewithsense.com. You can find articles, workshops, courses that I do. If you have questions about any of those things, or you want to suggest a topic, or if you found a Joe Rogan experience you would like to share with us, please send them to us. We love it when you guys send us stuff because you send us some really fun ones.
Yeah.
And Duncan, where could they send that to us?
You can send it to it at our email, gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, and yeah, if you want to come on the show and argue with us or just have a discussion, just email us and we'll schedule a time and we'll bring in. We can do Discord or we can set up a phone call, whatever you guys want to do. So yeah, just let us know. Thanks again everybody for watching, and we will catch you next time.